It's never been more clear, as Raptors assistant GM Dan Tolzman just revealed a lot about the Toronto Raptors' plans heading into this year's NBA draft. Of course, there have been a ton of trade rumors regarding this Raptors team and a lot of speculation about who will be available at the number 9 overall selection and who the Raptors are going to be targeting. And now, with Tolzman's comments as well as some recent updates, it's never been more clear in terms of what we can expect for this Raptors team entering the NBA draft. So we're going to break down what all of these reports are saying, what's going on with all this discourse, and what's coming straight from the Toronto Raptors front office in terms of their plans heading into the NBA draft. So lots of stuff to dive into in this video. Of course, if you don't want to miss a single thing, I always say subscribe, but also check us out on Spotify. Check us out there if you want to listen to Raptors Digest on the go. With how many reports, news, and things that are coming out, especially over the next couple of days, you're out and about, you're not able to get on the YouTube, definitely make sure that you're subscribed to Raptors Digest out there on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, because you'll be able to listen on the go. You'll be able to listen to all of the latest updates regarding this Raptors team. So definitely check us out there. If you're enjoying the podcast, definitely leave us a 5-star review. Means the world to us. But let's dive into it, because a lot was said about the Raptors' plans and a lot of stuff that's going on. So the first piece of news, the first thing that's come out is something that we've heard for a little while now, essentially that this is a good draft. Maybe a little deeper in terms of players that can have an impact right away. Now, this is a theme that will come up again in regards to Dan Tolzman's presser, because he had a lot to say about guys that are going to be available and whether or not they can be rotation players right away. And we know with the need for the backup big man position, Common Malwatch is a guy a lot of people have been looking at as the desired pick, hoping that he'll be available for the Toronto Raptors at that number 9 overall selection. So that's been the hopes, the dreams of this Raptors team, because we do have a hole at the backup big man position since we trade away Kelly Olynyk. Of course, there's a lot of hope for an older Shamshay, but he dealt with some injuries in the back half of last year, so we really don't know what we have in him. And Common Malwatch is a piece that we think is, someone that could be NBA ready, but Tolzman has some interesting comments on that. They're essentially saying that actual rotation minutes are actually easier to fill via trade or free agency rather than banking on that draft pick. If they can do it, that's the perfect scenario. It's just hard to plan for. And he really dove deep in terms of how the center position is one of those positions that, frankly, are the toughest ones for players, rookies, to come into the NBA and be effective right away. Of course, it's not unheard of that that's the case. We've seen a guy like Derek Lively come right away and be on a contender, the Dallas Mavericks, and make the NBA finals. They didn't win the finals, but that was just seasons ago, right? Duke big man as well, so another thing there. But basically, it's been done before, but we know how long it takes for centers to usually develop coming into the NBA. So he basically said the Raptors aren't going to prioritize the center position because of that. If they need to fill the backup big man spot, it'll probably be easier in terms of short term, making this team impressive, doing it via trade or out there in free agency. But of course, they're not going to stay away from it because it is a position of need. So that was a couple things that were brought up in regards to who's available, who's this, and who the Raptors are going to be targeting, because a lot of people want a backup center. But there's also some discourse in terms of the trade stuff that's been going around, because as I broke down yesterday, Brian Windhorst came out and said they have been looking to use the 9th pick, the Toronto Raptors, in terms of upgrading their roster in the short term. They haven't been able to find a deal for that yet. So we talked about this, we broke this down, and gave our thoughts on it. I'm not that eager for the Toronto Raptors to trade away. If Masai Ujiri's dealing away the number 9 overall selection, it better be a good deal. And now Tolzman essentially, his comments, his wording did fit a lot of what Brian Windhorst is saying, and also gave us some more insight in terms of what's going on. So he came out and said that it always takes another team to make those moves. It doesn't seem like there's many options out there to move up in the NBA draft. A lot of people feel where we are is a good place to be. There's definitely some interest in teams that are trying to get where we are. So a couple things to really take from this quote. Of course, it takes another team to make these moves, and that fits exactly what Brian Windhorst is saying. The Raptors are looking to upgrade their roster and selling away the 9th pick in terms of upgrading this team. But they need to find that second team to actually make that trade happen. So there are some options in terms of, trading back in the NBA draft, or at least, a lot of people that want to get into that position where the Toronto Raptors are, getting that 9th overall selection. A lot of people are eager or excited about the players that are available at that range, but the Toronto Raptors have not been able to make that move happen just yet. So That's where the Raptors are at in terms of their current state of making one of these moves go down and stuff like that there. So, we'll definitely keep our eyes peeled in the next couple days about a Toronto Raptors trade going down. And basically, he came out and said as well that it's a big group of guys that are currently in this tier, the 9th pick range of consideration. Our 8 is probably different than everyone else's 8 in terms of picks above us to the 6 to 7 guys that are after us. We really like the tier of players we're in right now, and we are trying to figure out the order of it. So he came out and said that in terms of, what the expectations are and the plans and stuff for this team entering that stuff, but went on to say, if we are comfortable with a certain group of guys and they fall back later into the NBA draft, that's where those considerations come up about making a trade to jump back into the NBA draft. So he spent a lot of time out there in this presser, in this press conference, talking about, firstly, how the Raptors are in a great place. They don't make any moves. There's a lot of guys they like at the number 9 overall selection. So he's not like, and of course he wouldn't say that in the first place, but it's not like the sky is falling if they do end up selecting there. I think a lot of Raptors fans are hoping the Toronto Raptors select with that number 9 overall selection. But a lot was said about how deep this draft is. A lot was said about how there are multiple teams interested in getting where the Toronto Raptors are at. And it's not from teams at the top of the draft. It's not, some teams will be rumored like the Sixers, the Wizards, and trading down and getting assets. It's a lot of teams that are out of the mix right now, trying to get into the mix of the top 10 selections in this year's NBA draft. So the Toronto Raptors see some players fall, or they see some pieces that are expected to be outside that range that they could select, 15th and 16th. The Hawks are trying to move up in the draft. The Kings are trying to get into the first round. The Raptors will be monitoring. They will be looking in terms of different moves that are available that can, improve this roster in the short term. Again, fitting that Brian Windhorst report, dealing with that 9th pick to get someone that will improve the roster in the short term, and maybe even select someone later in the draft where we know Masai Ujiri, the Raptors scouts, everyone out there on this Raptors team is very comfortable in selecting with that, later draft picks. We've seen the Raptors absolutely, in a draft that was regarded as extremely weak last season, end up getting some steals out there last year. I mean, Jakob Poeltl, late in the first round's a positive. Jamal Shead in the second round is an absolute steal. Jonathan Mobo is looking like a very solid pick for number 30. And then Jamison Battle's an undrafted guy. Masai Ujiri can find some gems in the rough, and especially in a deep NBA draft, that just makes it all the more easier. So that's what the Toronto Raptors, I would not be shocked, especially, they're never going to come out and say things directly, but reading the tea leaves, reading the stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if the Toronto Raptors do make a move and end up trading down. I'm not saying it's guaranteed going to happen, but I would not be shocked if that ends up being the case. But if the Raptors do have the number 9 overall pick, and there's a lot of discourse over the past month about Kwame Malawach jumping a lot of teams out there in the NBA draft and going a little bit higher than was projected during the course of his college season. But Malawach is a guy a lot of Raptors fans have wanted to fall to the Toronto Raptors. I discussed him at the beginning and stuff, and he seems like the guy that's going to be most available. So if we take a look at the mock drafts, this is a recently updated mock draft for the NBA Tankathon. It was updated today, I believe. So you see Ace Bailey dropping, see this stuff here, and Kwame Malawach is back at number 9. So he ended up dropping a couple slots because he was projected to go to the New Orleans Pelicans. So that's where Malawach is in the latest update from NBA Tankathon. You look at this update from the score, they have Malawach going number 9 to the Toronto Raptors once again. And then you also have this update in terms of, this is New York Times, I believe, having Malawach fall to the Toronto Raptors once again. Of course, this is a weird NBA draft. All the Ace Bailey stuff is very concerning. I mean, I expect him to fall no further than the Brooklyn Nets at number 8. He just threw out the opening pitch, I believe, for the New York Mets. So there's it might be a push for him to, get to the Nets. It would be tough for him to fall to number 9. I wouldn't be surprised, though, but this seems like one of the more unpredictable top 10s in this year's NBA draft. So I'm hoping Malawach is still available if the Toronto Raptors are selecting, but again, if you have one of the other guys, you have Fears, Knuppel, you have one of these dudes fall to the Toronto Raptors, and things could get very, very interesting for the Raptors at number 9. So let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comment section down below. You guys are the best to make it this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.